Hey everybody, this is Weird Future, and today me and my good friend Matt here are going to be talking about the newest season of, for what I hope you all have watched, Samurai Jack Season 5. So we're going to be talking a lot about the new episode and the show, but before we do, I want to kind of get into the artists and some of what happened in the original series, so you guys are prefaced before we start talking about the new episode. So the main, creator, director, writer, this guy did everything for the show, art, producer, is named I don't want to get it wrong, and I apologize if I do. I think it's either Gendy or Jendi.
I honestly can't help you there with the name either.
Yeah. It's either Gendy or Jendi Tartakovsky, and he's like an amazing artist. He's done a lot of work in cartoons since his earliest stuff is '91 by the looks of it. Just have a website open here trying to keep my information factually accurate. Done a lot of good work, but Samurai Jack is a personal favorite, and not only that, it seems to be a lot of others, or else it wouldn't be surviving so long now. With the original show and stuff, we see that we see obviously Jack, and we see how he gets sent to the future by a Coup, and we don't get much more than that in terms of an intro, or in any of the episodes really. We don't get much backstory to him. So to basically start it off, I'm going to give you guys the backstory of Aku. With the episode that they introduce him, he doesn't start as a person, but he starts like a black oil that is like infecting the world. And what happens is, like, it starts off with him. You see this black oil consume plants and trees and any sort of life. As it keeps growing, it sprouts these black trees that look oddly like a Coup across its entirety. And what ends up happening is it reaches the land where Jack's father is. And being the shogun, or I'm not even sure. Like, definitely the king or ruler of this land decides he has to go out and stop it himself, and he takes this not a magic arrow. He takes a poison dipped arrow, and he uses this magic on the arrow and shoots it into the black oil. And what he thinks is he's doing is he's gonna send it away, but the magic actually gives the black oil life, and that's where Aku is born. He's basically a mixture of this, like, oil. I don't even know what it is. It's just like a black ooze spreading across the earth, and
Is
he
that
is.
is that really the origin? I no, it sounds right. I haven't
No,
watched the
no.
series
Okay,
since
well,
like 2001.
yeah, no. I rewatched this episode. It's called The Birth of Evil. That's literally the
Damn,
name of the episode. And
that's
what happened?
crazy. That's a
Yeah, and
crazy origin.
yeah, his dad basically uses this magic arrow, or not, this poisoned arrow with magic, and shoots it into the oil, thinking it'll send the oil away. But it gives the oil form, and it
So
makes it.
so his dad created Aku.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
So
Wow.
yeah, and what ends up happening is Aku obviously beats him the first time because he doesn't have the sword, and then the dad has to go on this solo adventure of self discovery, and it ends with him meeting three gods: Odin, Ra, and a Indian god, but I'm not gonna remember the name. It's definitely like an Egyptian, a Viking, and a god, and they all basically are standing around him, and they say that we're gonna test your mind, body, and spirit, like all of it at once, and we will form a weapon of it will embody your will, and that is the sword that Jack uses. It's a literal formation of his father's will to defeat Aku,
Wow.
created by gods.
Do we have the name of that episode by any chance? The
Birth of Evil.
Birth of Evil?
I
Oh,
think it's the
okay.
Birth of Evil episode. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's it. It's either
I'm gonna
Birth of Evil Part 1 or 2.
I'm gonna personally check that episode out. If there's any viewers who want to catch up on the origin of how Aku was born, the origin of the sword, and maybe even some of Jack's dad's adventures, just there we go, Birth of Evil. Go ahead and check
Yeah,
it out.
yeah. And the whole episode ends with Jack's dad basically losing. Aku gets away, or he doesn't get away per se, but Jack's dad thinks he defeats Aku. But what ends up happening is obviously Aku comes back, so his dad decides that his son will be the only person willing, or not willing. His son will be the weapon against Aku besides the sword.
And
So
that's why he sends him on that whole training trip
yeah,
around the world. Got it.
yeah, and if you like, there's like episodes scattered through every season of a young Jack experiencing some part of his childhood. You see him with his family. You see him with a tribe in Africa, learning how to use their weapons. There's a whole montage episode of him visiting all these tribes and learning how to fight with them and stuff, and just learning from them. It's not even just fighting. It's like he learns philosophy and he learns like how they like do things. It's not just him going around and absorbing worst parts about them. It's him learning everything about them. And I really like that because I like the idea that Jack is a culmination of humanity.
Yeah,
He has all these things in him that make him Jack, and not just those things, but these things he's learned from everyone else.
exactly. He basically went on a Batman Odyssey, just kind of learned basically everything and then came back just the perfect specimen, you know?
Yeah. So
Oh,
obviously he beats Coup and gets into the future, and we get that whole shindig of the first few seasons.
okay. Okay. All right. Shall we get into episode 1, season 5? Should we?
I think we should. I think we should just really get into it. There's obviously we could go into detail about the first 4 seasons. We could talk about all the best fights, all these mental battles that Jack has. All these dilemmas and trials and friends he makes and loses. And but you guys should watch that yourselves. This is a show that you guys got to experience on your own, and we can't do it justice through words.
Now, that being said, there are going to be spoilers. We're going to talk about everything that happened in this episode. So if you don't want to watch, if you want to watch the episode first, I recommend that. But if you're cool with it, just a warning: we will be spoiling everything.
Spoilers.
Get out.
Yeah, so the episode basically starts with Jack doing his thing. Jack saving lives, except we see that he uses a whole new weapon, a whole new arsenal. He has a motorcycle, he wears new armor, he has guns. It's not a different Jack, but it's a Jack who's now utilizing the weapons of the future, which I really like because he never did in the first seasons. He never went out of his way to like grab a gun or things like that. Like unless it was like in the moment that he needed it, he never pre-planned to use a gun. A gun was just laid in front of him.
Exactly. And what I liked about this first scene where he's on his bike and he's taking down all these robotic bugs is this is definitely a darker Jack. We don't see any of the former kind of friendlier Jack. He goes to go help out people, but he's here to kill those bugs, and he does it in like the most violent way possible. He's breaking out some spikes on his wheels to just destroy the bugs. He has like all these different weapons, and he's doing it mercilessly. It's amazing.
Yeah. What I really like is that we see that this new season has definitely got more money going into it. We see a lot more of these widescreen shots with higher detail. We see a lot of shots with just a lot clearer animation than the first few seasons had.
Yeah.
And you can tell that it's because of the money that they got. And I'm really glad because that's what this show kind of deserved.
That I wanted to mention that a lot parts of this episode definitely felt like it was almost like the creator was just kind of showing off what they can do now compared to what they did before in the past series. It's like, look at these new shots. Look at his motorcycle. His motorcycle was it just me, or did it seem kind of like CGI? Like
there was
something.
Okay. The spikes on the wheels were CGI'd in. I could be wrong about that, but the animation for them felt like it was CGI'd in. And then there's a scene, or the scene immediately after he kills all the bugs. There's a scene of him riding on the bike, and it's just a bunch of shots or cuts of him riding on the bike from different angles. Right there, there was a lot. I think there was a lot of CG to that.
There was one where he's driving, and unfortunately we can't put this up, because the episode just came out. We don't want to get in trouble or anything, but he has his head down, and he's kind of you're focusing in on his face, and I felt like there was a lot of time put into that. They're like, oh, okay, this is Samurai Jack now. This is what this show is going to look like from now on. I felt like that's what that shot was for.
Yeah, it's almost like a preface shot, and I'm glad. I think that's smart to do, giving everybody an idea of what they're about to experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So as we continue with the episode, he saves these lives. But here's the thing: like what I've noticed in the first seasons, Jack is very interactive. He's very sociable when it comes to saving people. Like everybody he saves, he becomes friends with most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, the first he saves this family, this little girl, his family, and what ends up happening is he just drives away. Not a word to them. Not a second glance at them. He just
not even a smile. Not even a
smile. Exactly. He just leaves. And I think that's telling of how much time has passed in Jack's eyes. Because
let's get to that. In the intro, we actually find out that was it 50 years or 60 years that he's
50,
now been alive.
50 years.
50 years have now passed, and unfortunately, there's been some weird side effect of him being sent to the future where he doesn't age. So that's 50 years Jack has been just fighting Coup, getting assassins sent after him, 50 years nonstop. and it hasn't stopped.
It's driven it not. It's not even that it's just driven him crazy at the beginning. We see that it's just made him cold. It's made him a cold, calculated, almost a killer. Except he's doing it for good, and that's where like the line is starting to get drawn. Where we're seeing that Jack is slowly tipping over. We're seeing that like the water's running over on his cup, and it's driving him over the edge.
Exactly. And now that it's on Adult Swim, we're going to see a little bit more of a violent Jack. There's going to be blood in this series. The creator said this is going to be the first season where we actually see Jack kill a human. This is this darker Jack is we're actually gonna see this all play. Apart.
Okay, but we got to remember, and we're gonna move on a little bit, but we got to remember that the show is called Samurai Jack, but it's not just about him. We have to deal with Aku. And if you guys don't know, the original voice actor for Aku died. I'm sorry, I don't remember what his name is. That actually makes me feel real bad. It's the guy that did Uncle Iroh's voice, I think, actually.
Yeah.
Avatar: The Last Airbender. But it's actually really telling because we hear Aku's voice once actually in this episode, and it's later on, and we'll talk about it then. But we don't physically see Aku anywhere in this episode. We see followers of Aku, and we see Jack, and we see some regular people that are kind of in the middle, but we never actually have a physical idea of what Aku looks like after 50 years. But
yeah, that's a mystery. Did something happen, or because usually he was prevalent in almost every episode. We would see him.
And he's so okay. And in the original seasons, he's so out there. Aku is just like a being of like cockiness almost. He just loves putting himself out there and making fun of you in your own face and then laughing about it. He's not eccentric, although he kind of is.
He's egotistical. He's very egotistical.
Exactly. He's arrogant. So it's the fact that we don't see him at all, but we know he's still sending assassins after Jack is it's almost. It's interesting to see. It's weird to know that now Aku's fallen even farther behind the scenes. He's putting a curtain up that nobody knows where, or I don't know if nobody knows where he is, but like, you know what I mean? Like we're just not seeing him, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, I understand. Let's talk about the daughters of Aku. The whole opening scene where they're being trained and
born.
Yeah, that was
okay.
That was intense.
I actually got a question for you on that I wanted to save till right now. So, if throughout the episode we see that there's these 7 daughters born of this woman who is a devout follower of Aku, and she trains all 7 to kill Samurai Jack. Through the entirety of their lives, they are grown to be assassins. Now, my question to this is, are they grown rapidly? Are we seeing their lives and their, like, okay, so we see them as kids, or we see them babies, kids, teenagers, adults?
No, you know what? I think what it was doing is kind of like a time lapse. He's been around for 50 years now. 50.
Yeah.
So I think what it was kind of showing like, oh, this happened a while back, and now currently they're
question.
Adults.
Yeah, that's my question, because we see that they're being born, raised, and trained. So I'm assuming that this is happening like during year 25, or you know what I mean, or year 20, 30 of Jack's future endeavors, and now these kids are born and raised. He's been there so long that these kids have been born and raised to fight him. That's kind of messed up to think about from both perspectives. Like, Jack shouldn't have been there that long, and this shouldn't have happened to them. But now it's happening to both people, both sides.
And the training was brutal. There was that one scene where the leader of the Daughters of Aku was stepping on the hand of one of the daughters, and just the face was very intense.
Yeah,
the wrinkles of pain. Oh my god!
And all she was asking is, "Are you weak?
Yeah,
are you weak?" It's brutal. It's just brutal. But it's interesting to see, because we see that a lot of the assassins that Jack has fought in the first few seasons, not all of them, but a majority of them aren't tempered. They're not, they're not patient. They may be skilled fighters, but that doesn't necessarily give them a step ahead in terms of planning, almost wisdom.
Yeah, and they're almost kind of comical. Well, this is
serious.
Yeah, these are trained killers. We actually get some backstory. We find out, we're seeing that this isn't just going to be about Samurai Jack, but be about them as well and their hunt for him. So it's going to be interesting to see them chase after him.
And with Gendy telling us that we're going to see him end a human life, and there's 7 daughters, human daughters, coming after him to kill him. chances are good one of them aren't making out, aren't making it out. But
Yeah.
they make it a point to show one of the daughters in particular, and I feel really bad for forgetting her name. I want to say starts with an A, but we see one daughter in particular, and it's the daughter that's getting tortured. It's the one that gets her hands crushed, and she gets brutally beaten as a child. We also see, which is pretty messed up. And as she grows older, she basically becomes the leader because they treated her almost the most brutal.
She grew up to be the strongest, correct? Yeah.
You see her more than any of the other daughters through the episode, but I'm sure if we're getting all seven, we might each get like a part for each of them. Cutting back to Jack, the daughters are born, trained, and raised, and then they're sent out to kill Jack. And but before they're sent out to kill Jack, we see that Jack is fighting Aku's #1 assassin again.
And what was his name? He also said his name. I missed it.
Dude, honestly, I was gonna call him the Scat God.
The Scat God. He honestly probably could have been known as that. He was awesome.
He's basically a Pied Piper, if you will. He uses music to control things, and he uses to control swords, and he uses it to use telekinesis. I think it's pretty intense.
No clue. I was thinking kind of like a Magneto-like character because we see him controlling rocks and swords. So I was thinking maybe it had something to do with like geokinesis. That's the word.
Yeah,
like,
but
controls the earth.
Yeah, but here's the thing, like, maybe but he is also a robot, and my favorite line he says is you can get rid of my magic flute, but you can't get rid of the magic that is me, baby.
Oh,
and then he starts singing himself. He starts doing scat, and that's what controls like the sword and all that stuff. And I was like, that's such a clever little thing that he is a robot. So technically, if he wanted to create those vocal things, I would totally understand that would make sense.
Yeah, and we once again see the real ferocity of Jack in this one. I mean, he uses. I really liked when he used his gun to shoot off the rock monster's head.
It's the first shot, spam.
Yeah, and then he also, I mean, he's brutal at this point. He just blatantly gets to close combat with this robot. He just starts punching him right in the face, right in the beginning. No hesitation.
He just auras him like 20 times, just like punching him, like railing him. But the big point, like not even the actual robot that he's fighting is the big point of this fight. I think it's something that happens before and during this fight that is like the most important, and something that's happening throughout the episode, and it's that Jack's going crazy. 50 years in the future has driven him actually insane. Like he is seeing things.
Yeah, he's seeing visions of his father in the fire. He's seeing visions of people he couldn't save in the past, and we're also seeing, and I wanted to ask you about this, Qube, is this mysterious character with kind of like the antlers, antler helmet.
The horseman that he keeps seeing in his visions. This is bullshit because it's not right, because the character has, either the character has 2 eyes or green eyebrows, and if he has green eyebrows, it might be a Coup, but I'm probably wrong.
Now, when I was reading some theories on this after I watched the episode, but there's a couple fan theories out right now. One of them is that vision is what Jack might have become if he would have stayed in the past, or if he would have killed a Coup, he would have taken a Coup's place. That was one of the theories. It's a vision of himself becoming darker.
Okay.
A second theory is that we did see for a very short second that Jack lost the sword, and what someone pointed out was where he was at. It kind of had that green glow, so maybe this was this is like the spirit of the sword kind of contacting him, like,
okay,
like
but
you lost me.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the spirit of his sword is his dad.
Yeah.
It's his father. So if that was his dad, that would totally make sense. What more could Jack fear than disappointing? Like his actual, like, the sword is his dad almost. So like losing that is like losing his father.
But that's exactly my point, because we've seen Jack go up against a Coup, and he is fearless. He never feared a Coup. He was always brave against the face of the purest evil in this universe. Yeah. But this is something that makes Jack run. He's afraid of
every time he sees it, he just gets on the bike and goes. He doesn't sleep. He does, he's just going. And it's really interesting. It's funny because, in the original show, we know Jack is relentless, and in this, Jack is even more relentless. But in the original show, we see that Jack takes breaks. he'll take a moment, he'll sleep, he'll eat, he'll drink. This
Yeah.
that insanity doesn't allow that to happen. He
He,
has
he
to
can't
keep
go to
moving.
sleep. Yeah, he can't stop for even a second. It's
So,
amazing.
so here's my theory, and this is wrong. This has got to be totally wrong, but I'd really, really love this for this to happen. So we know that a Odin-like god helps create the sword. I
Hmm.
really want to believe that horseman is Odin, and it's
Oh,
because the thing is, they test his father's will to create the sword, and if they find anything other than a pure will, it will destroy him. So what I want to believe is that if it's Odin, he's trying to look at Jack and test his will, and now Jack is so afraid now that he's lost the sword, now that he can't get back to the past, that if his will is tested, he will be broken more than he already is.
that's an
Now,
interesting theory. Yeah, that's a what you said. It is a shot in the dark. It might not be
yeah,
true at all, but
yeah.
that'd be an interesting
Because
something to do.
these gods like made this sword for the sole purpose of destroying a Coup, to destroy that evil. And now that Jack's lost it, that's almost what happens if they felt that was a disrespect to them. What happens if they want to test him again to make sure he's worthy of the sword?
Yeah.
And,
Oh man.
but who knows? Who knows? I want to make it a point to say that we see a lot of gods in this show. We see Kronos. Kronos is a god in this. We see Odin. We see a few, I want to say the Vishnu, but we see a lot of Indian gods. We see a lot of Egyptian gods. We see Ra for sure. We see like a Anubis like character in the first few seasons as well. It's pretty intense, like the level of like godliness that runs through the show. And for some, and like Aku is the emanation of just evil, and we see all these gods on the other side. So it's telling me that Aku is probably still really strong if there's no other evil god standing beside him.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing is, and I think this should be the last point before we finish up here, but Aku is such a funny character. He almost doesn't seem evil at times. He
He's
just
comical. He's
Yeah,
comical.
and when it finally comes down to the final fight, I'm almost curious. Do you think it'll actually be a coup, or do you think maybe there's a whole nother plot going on here with this whoever this writer is, and maybe Jack himself, that maybe Aku isn't the final villain, that
I,
maybe
I
you know
like. I think you're right in the sense that like Aku being the final villain almost feels weird. It almost feels like it doesn't make sense. But I only say that in the fact that Jack's main battle besides Aku has always been with himself, and now he's really dealing with that with these visions.
hmm
So at the end of the season, I could totally understand that if the final battle wasn't Aku, but him fighting himself, which has happened before. There's a clone episode. Go look it up. There's there's this fight would be so much more intense. Just like Jack's culmination of his 50-year crazy going against Jack.
yeah, yeah. Think about that. Chew on that, guys.
Chew on that.
All right. Well, there you guys go. That was essentially the episode of season 5, episode 1. If you have any questions about the episode, something we didn't get into, by all means, throw them down.
Oh,
We'll definitely answer. Oh,
yeah, and one last thing, one last little thing I mentioned. We do hear Aku's voice. The assassin calls Aku. The robot assassin calls Aku in the middle, right before the fight starts, to tell Aku that Jack lost the sword, which means Aku doesn't know, which is a really big deal.
yeah, because the sword's the only thing that can slay a coup.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So
Yeah.
I think that's us wrapping it up.
Yeah. So we'll be back again next week, probably around the same time, to do another review of the next episode. And well, I thought it was fantastic. I am biased against this series, though. I love this series.
Totally.
Yeah.
We were born and bred on this cartoon.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Don't be surprised if every episode this season is rated highly by us, honestly. So, but that's you're free to have your own opinions. Let us know. We could always talk about it. Anyways, I'm Matt K,
and on the cube.
and we'll see you guys next time.